Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am your host, Vortex, from MobileMusicPro.com, your home for mobile music production. And if you are new to the channel, what we do here is release weekly videos teaching people how to produce music on their iOS device. And in today's video, we're going to be showing you how to produce a UK drill type beat inside Cubasis using our brand new sample pack, Genesis. And of course, we'll link to that in the description below. And remember folks, if you do enjoy this content, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Now, if you're not yet familiar with what drill is, it's basically a new type of hip-hop genre that was first made famous by the producer Pop Smoke and his album Meet the Woo. Now, what drill is really known for is its dark melodies, its big pitch-bending 808s, and its offset hi-hat patterns. And there's also some significant pattern changes from trap that exist only in drill beats, giving it its own unique bounce and its own unique sound. However, many of the same processing techniques are still used, such as the halftime effect and that RC20 tape saturation effect on the main melodies. And finally, just a quick reminder that we are still giving away a brand new copy of Cubasis 3 every month until June, so definitely make sure to head over to MobileMusicPro.com for your chance to win your copy now. Alright, now with that intro aside, let's get right into showing you how to create a UK drill type beat inside Cubasis 3. Hello and welcome everybody. We are wishing you the happiest of the happiest from Mobile Music Pro to wherever you are in the world. Now, as we said, we are using our brand new sample pack Genesis to create this beat, but of course you could use any stock sounds that you'd like as long as they're relatively close to what you're hearing here. So what we're going to do is play the beat first and then break it down for you track by track. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started playing this beat. Alright, let's get the headphones on and listen to what this beat sounds like. So we'll go ahead and start it from the top. Here we go. Alright, hopefully you guys enjoyed that beat. Now let's go ahead and start breaking this track down. Alright, now before we begin going through every single one of these tracks track by track, I want to first focus on the drums, because the drums are so very important in both drill and trap genres, and in fact there are some major differences here that set aside the drill genre to be very unique. Now normally in most trap genres you do have the snare on the 3 and the 7, but here we're actually going to put it on the 3 and the 8, so let's hear what that sounds like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And as far as the kicks go, there really isn't a whole lot going on. In fact, there is a really big space that is kept in the beginning of most drill tracks. So we have our first initial kick right here on the downbeat, and then we have a bunch of other empty space here that happens before our final two kicks on the final two beats. And another thing to note is the hats. They are going to be a little bit different than your standard trap patterns, where you could just get away with putting in every other one. The hat is actually going to have a bit more of a dotted type pattern, so it's going to look more like this, where it's like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be very important if you want to get that specific bounce that is found in drill beats. And depending on whatever sequencer that you're using, you also want to of course add a bit of swing. So here we are using the Octocron sequencer, and in the options we can see that we have a swing option on the bottom. So we have ours set to around 50 to 60 swing and the swing grid on 8. It's just going to end up sounding more electronic if you don't add this. So as we said, the kicks are a little bit unique. We just have one at the beginning of the phrase and then a couple at the end of the phrase. And then we have our snares or claps on the 3 and 8. And then we have a dotted type pattern for our hi-hats. And this is the drum pattern that we started out with. Once we had this pattern, we then recorded this MIDI data to our track and then customized it after that. So now let's go ahead and hear the finished drum pattern with the kick, snare, and hi-hats. So on our kick, we just used a channel strip, studio EQ, and low-fly dirt from MS-12 Sound Design. That's going to give us a little bit of extra oomph and a little bit of extra dirt or distortion. And the actual sound of the kick is coming from our Genesis Kit 1. And then next up we have our snare track here, again with a channel strip, studio EQ, and low-fly dirt. I think for the preset we're using here, it's going to be the snare schnapp. And the actual sound of our snare here is coming from Genesis Kit 1. And then next up we have our hats, again with just a channel strip and studio EQ. But then in addition to that, we did throw on a stereo width plugin so that we could spread out those hats into the back of the stereo field. And finally, we added a phaser, giving our hats just a little bit of extra sauce, a little bit more movement. We have our first hat here coming from the Genesis Kit 1. And then we have our second hats coming from Genesis Kit 13. And our third hats is coming from Genesis Kit 19. And now it's finally come to the all-important 808. And we are using Audio Layer as our sampler here to input our 808 sample from our Genesis sample pack. So if we pull up Audio Layer, if we look here, we can see that we are using the 808 One-Shot 17. And of course, just like all the sounds in our sample pack, we do label it with the key as well. Now there are some important settings here that you're going to need to add if you are going to get that 808 gliding sound. So if we go into our additional settings here, we'll tap on the blue icon here. We can see that we have a couple of different settings. Let's make this big so we can see. We can see here that we have our level, filter, and pitch settings. Now, some of the most important settings that you'll need is the monophonic setting right here to make sure that your 808s don't overlap each other. And below that, we have our portamento setting, which is going to allow our 808 to glide. And then below that, we have the amount of notes that we'd like to pitch bend. So we have ours set around 1 second here for our glide, but you can adjust this to whatever sounds good for your song. And one of the last most important settings that you're going to need is inside of the level. Here we have our envelope settings. And what we want to do is make sure that our release is set all the way to the end so that our 808 can ride all the way out. Oh, and then one final most important setting as well here is the voices. We want to make sure that our voices is always set to 1. Again, so that our 808s don't overlap each other. And now that we have our settings, we can begin entering some notes and hear that glide. Alright, now we're going to quickly look at our MIDI settings for our 808. As you can see, our root note here is a D, and we are doing some glides over here and then over here. So you can tell when there is a glide because there is notes overlapping each other. So as you can see, these two notes are overlapping this notes. And what you effectively get if your settings are set is a slide. So let's hear what that sounds like. So you can hear the 808 is sliding from these bottom notes to these top notes. And again, just like with our kick, we only really want to have one major note at the beginning of our phrase, and then we get a little bit more complex here towards the end. Alright, now as far as processing goes on our 808, we definitely have a couple of things here. We have our standard channel strip and studio EQ, but in addition to that, we have our FAC transient with the preset set on fuzzy drums. This app is going to modify the attack of our drums, making it hit a little bit harder. And then finally, we have our FAC bandit. Now this is going to give us a bunch of warmth and a bunch of distortion on the low end in our 808. And now let's quickly hear our 808 with all of that processing on top. Now after our drum tracks come the melody tracks, but before we do that, we do have a riser track in here as well. So let's just hear what that sounds like real quick. We made two different versions of this, a little bit longer one there, and then a shorter one here. And of course, you're going to be using these as transition sounds. And now we have our main chords, and these are being played by the Ravencroft 275 piano. And we have a few plugins on here like the Channel Strip and Studio EQ, but we also have a couple of pretty important plugins in addition to that, and one of those is the Blease Slow Machine. This is going to give us our halftime effect. And after that, we have our RX 950. This is going to give us a little bit more of that lo-fi sound and reduce a bunch of those transients, making it sound more like a tape saturation. And let's hear what those sound like real quick. Alright, very cool. That's pretty much one of the only sounds that's not actually coming from the Genesis sample pack. That sound and the riser. Pretty much everything else is coming from our sample pack. And how we created those chords was using an app called Suggester. This will bring up a bunch of different chords for you and allow you to hear what they sound like. So what we did is we chose chords in D natural minor, and we just threw a few chords in there to see what sounded good, and then we printed that MIDI to the track. I'm not actually sure what the original chords were that I used, but it was definitely in D natural minor. Alright, so those chords sounded pretty good. What you'll find in drill beats is that most of the actual melodies and the chords are made up of dark pianos and strings. So usually something like a grand piano. And so we definitely incorporated that into this beat as well. Again, those chords are using that Ravencroft piano, but we also have some strings as well. So let's take a look at those. So these dark strings are really complementing those piano keys really well. As far as processing, we again have our Channel Strip and Studio EQ, and we again are applying our RX 950 to give us some of that lo-fi sound. This app is really going to add some of that saturation and distortion that we're looking for. Now, in addition to the strings and the keys, I wanted a little bit more distortion in the actual sound. I wanted a little bit of fuzz or just some kind of distortion that will add a little bit more to the darkness. So what we ended up using is one of our synth shots here. We used the Synth Shot 19, as well as a couple plugins like the Halftime on the Blease Slow Machine, and again that RX 950. And so let's hear what that sounds like. Alright, very cool. Definitely added a bit of grit to our sound. Alright, and now on to the main melody. Now this melody is again coming from our sample pack, and we added a few different effects on this one. So let's first hear what this sounds like. Alright, very cool. So on here we have the Channel Strip, Studio EQ, Effectrix, and RX 950. Now we are using Effectrix here to add a little bit of sauce to this melody. So if we take a look at here at this full screen, we can see we are adding a stutter, a phaser, and a delay. And this again is going to give us some more movement inside of our melody. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, how can you have a trap or a drill dark sound without a bell? So we added that here as well, and that of course is coming from our sample pack as well. So let's hear what this sounds like. Alright, very cool. So that is definitely tucked away in the background with its volume turned down a lot in order to give the overall track just a little bit of extra darkness. And that sound is coming from our sample pack, which is going to be Synth Shot 14. Alright, and there you have it, folks. That is how easy it is to create a drill beat. Just like with any genre, some of the most important things to nail down are those drum patterns and instruments. And once you have those in place, you can really find the sound that you're looking for a lot quicker. Alright guys, if you are still rocking with us, then we just can't thank you enough for being here. And we especially can't thank the folks enough that are here every single Wednesday and Friday watching our live streams and our live premieres. Now we do hope that this video has helped you identify and understand the main characteristics that make up the songs in the drill beat genre. Now every genre does have its own unique patterns, instruments, and processing techniques that you'll need to be aware of, especially if you are going to produce in multiple genres. So it is really important to listen to a bunch of reference tracks before attempting to produce a track in that genre. Thankfully, there's a ton of great info about music production on YouTube, including channels like ours. So if you do ever have any questions, make sure to hit us up in the comments below. And don't forget, we are on Clubhouse now, featuring a brand new room every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be talking about everything from business to marketing to music production and beyond, with this week's topic talking about how to produce music on the iPad. So definitely make sure to give us a follow over there on Clubhouse at MobileMusicPro. And finally, as we said at the beginning of the show, we are still giving away a brand new copy of Cubasis 3 every month until June. To enter this free giveaway, simply visit MobileMusicPro.com and click on the Cubasis 3 giveaway link. And of course, we always have a ton more content coming your way, guys, so if you do want to keep up with everything that we're doing over here, from sample packs to giveaways to contests and more, make sure to subscribe to our free newsletter at MobileMusicPro.com. And so, until next time everybody, keep talking music and we'll see you later. And if you are new to the channel, what we do here is... Now, if you're not familiar yet with the drill genre... And if you're not yet familiar with what the drill type sound... Let's see. And there's also some significant pattern changes that exist... Let's see. And there's also some significant pattern changes... God damn it. And there's also some significant pattern changes from trap... Let's see.